Harper, CSI star, Harvard Law. Got a lot on your resume, man, and you're a incredible role model for a lot of people. Working on some books. Tell me about your books you've written and ones that you're working on now.
Three New York Times best-selling books. The first one's called Letters to a Young Brother, Manifest Your Destiny. It's a motivational book for young men, particularly urban youth, and very proud of it because it's really that book started my foundation, the Manifest Your Destiny Foundation, and all the work we do with young men and women. The book really happened very organically. The first book, there wasn't some big plan that I was going to become an author or anything like that. It was my first year of CSI New York, and just found that I had a lot of time, in my dressing room, sitting around by myself, and a lot of time to think. And I'd been doing, for years leading up to that, I'd been doing a number of speaking engagements at high schools and middle schools, particularly public high schools, public middle schools, talking about, because I'm the product of the public school system, and talking about education and focusing on educational opportunity and how you can change and better your life through education. And then what I started to get was a lot of letters, fan mails, emails from young men saying, hey, you came and spoke at my school and you talked about that there was nothing I couldn't do. I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to do that. Can you help me or can you mentor me? What can you do? So I started to take all the letters that I was getting or emails and all the stuff from the young men, started bundling them into categories because they all seem to fit into different categories about life and life achievement. And so I decided to write a book. Once I did that, there was a book that was very helpful to me when I was coming up called Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke.
I was going to ask you about that. I had that on my notes.
Okay, good. Well, Rilke is a German poet, and those who don't know about his story, he was one of Germany's most famous and revered poets, late 1800s, early 1900s. And he got a letter from a young man asking him to read his two poems and basically saying, you know what, will you read my two poems and tell me if I could be a poet like you? And that started a letter exchange between him and this young man that lasted years. And the first letter that Rilke sent back to him was so beautiful, talking about don't ever allow anyone else to tell you what the capacity of your life is and what you possibly can achieve and what you can do. And it just really resonated with me when I was younger and I was gifted the book. And so my goal was, could I write a modern day version of that type of book, Letters to a Young Poet? So I called it Letters to a Young Brother. And it was a struggle, to be honest, to get it out at first because the publishing community had the perspective that young men, and particularly young urban youth, would not purchase a book. Their feeling was these guys aren't reading. They're not reading books. Here's the deal. I said, you're wrong. They're reading. They're just not reading the books that you're putting out because you're not putting out things that they're interested in reading. So I said, I guarantee you, if I'm able to achieve the goal that I have for this book, in other words, write it in a way that they'd be interested in reading it, then it will be a success. And it did extremely well and continues to do well. It's in a number of school districts across the country. There's a judge in Philadelphia that she gives out the books, both the one to young men and one to young women, whenever she sentences them to some type of juvenile detention program. And it won the American Library Association Award, Best Book for Young Adults in 2007. And that really started the writing. And so I did Letters to a Young Sister, which was for young women, the next book. And then the next book, the third book I did, was a book called The Conversation, which was about relationships. And then this is the next book, and the idea of what is true wealth. And it comes out August 23rd, and I'm excited about it. I really am. It's definitely a big, broad book. It's my most ambitious book to date, speaking about what true wealth is and how we as individuals can view ourselves in terms of living truly wealthy lives, and what does that mean. But I'm excited about it because I think a lot of people are contemplating that as we look around the world, and we're seeing austerity measures happen in Greece, for instance, and people are protesting that. And then talking about debt issues here in this country, and there's so much talk about money and wealth and disparities and income disparities and fixing the education system. And the only way to do that is with money, and then, you know, healthcare and money. And so what is wealth? And how does money fit into our lives? Money plus wellness equals wealth.
Health?
Wellness. So, and health is a huge component
Sure.
of wellness, okay? But there is all sorts of other things that fill into that wellness. I mean, just being intrinsically
Sleep.
happy. Sleep, you know,
Sleep's a big one for
family,
me.
all of these different things, these support systems, friends. This is all about wellness. And so,
Sure.
it's about building a wealthy life and living a full, true life.
Alternative. Name of our company. Not talking about t-shirts, I'm talking about what is your alternative in life? What is something about you that is different? Where you've traveled a different road than the others around you, where you've made your own choices? I think this all relates back beautifully, actually, to the book
Mhm.
and books you've written and what that stands for.
One thing that just popped into my head is something I talk about a great deal, and this idea of courage. The etymology of the root of that word is kur, which means heart. And so what true courage is living from your heart and having the ability to not allow fear, which for me, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. We're bombarded with false evidence that appears real, but it's not. It's untrue. So many of us have been told and sold things that are just false. And I hope to attempt to live my life from my core, from my heart, and therefore a very courageous life, and not allow fear, stuff that other people project to me or misinformation I've received, whether it's from sociology and different messaging, or TV, the internet, all this information that's out there, and to live a true-hearted life.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, you wearing your heart on your sleeve, you know?
Yes,
I
there's
mean,
your heart's right here.
That's right.
So, but I love to set goals, and so I've set a new goal for this book, The Wealth Cure. All my other books have hit the New York Times bestsellers list, but my goal, I never hit number one. Never hit number one on the New York Times bestseller. So my goal.
Every book you've written has hit the New York Times bestseller list.
Yes,
Wow.
all three. But
That's
this
amazing.
one, my goal is for this one to hit number one. Okay. So what I'm working on is trying to work pre-sales, because what the internet has created, which is awesome in the book world, but at the same time, what's weird is that the internet's created an opportunity. It's kind of like what happened in music. It's created new opportunities for books and authors, but it's also
competition.
closed bookstores.
Yeah.
You know, Borders
Yeah.
just basically closed all their bookstores, right? And so there's a new way to find reading and books. I hope and I pray that although we electronically download books and we can purchase them that way and Kindle it and all that, I hope that people never forget or lose this. I mean, it's so beautiful to see a page. I mean, look at these beautiful books here that you have. I mean, there's something beautiful about turning a real page. So my goal, number one New York Times bestsellers, the only way I can do that is pre-sales.
Okay.
So if you're watching this right now, you can go to Amazon or BarnesandNobles.com and pre-order the book, right? It's much cheaper to do it that way. It's like 40% off. All those sales, what people don't realize, all those sales count towards your first week on the list.
Gotcha.
My biggest and best opportunity to hit number one would be that first week,
Gotcha.
August 23rd. So that's my little goal.
Well, we'll do what we can.
Okay. When you get your book, I'll sign your book.
You got it. I'm
Okay.
gonna hold you to that.
Okay. So when we go to dinner, you'll get
That
your
could
book.
be in like
We'll take it.
2019.
No,
at
we'll
this
make it
point.
happen. We'll make it happen. So it's great.
All right. Well, Hill Harper, I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Keep
out.
up the great work.